16th, when South African troops and police opened fire on a peaceful school children's demonstration, the white government has presided over the largest massacre of its black population since South Africa came into existence. Hundreds of blacks have died, thousands have been wounded, but the white Prime Minister says there is no crisis.
June 16th, 2026. Today marks 50 years, people. 50 years of the June 16th event. And it has been remembered and commemorated year after year. But 50 years later, we still find ourselves in a struggle. It is horrendous that 50 years later, we still are dealing with deaths in a pit latrine, in pit latrine toilets. In this week, a child died by falling into a pit latrine. It was in the Eastern Cape, but KZN, there are many tragedies already reported in KZN, and we are a site where it's just waiting to happen. 50 years later, we still singing Die Stem. The old apartheid Afrikaans anthem. That in itself just is a reflection of how no change has actually happened. 50 years later, we sit in a KZN legislature with a statue of Queen Victoria in front of it. So there is so little change, and so much has just worsens all the time. Living conditions are terrible. Youth unemployment is at its worst. It is so debilitating, and it has caused such great hardship and instability in society. It is not funny. To the youth of this country and KZN, let me remind you that the poverty your parents face, the hunger your parents face, and the poverty and hunger that you face is not because we don't have the resources, or it's not because we live in a poor country. We have two countries in one. We have a first world country on the one hand, and we have a third world country on the other hand. We have slums, the slums as you'd find in India, in Calcutta, in Brazil, in many parts of the world where thousands of people live in slums. The same is true for South Africa, but it is spread all over, so even housing is like that. Industry has been, it's the ANC government that has closed industry, and most of our manufacturing takes place outside of this country. As we go into the local government elections on the 4th of November, let me call on the youth to do their hardest to organize themselves, to speak to other young people, to ensure that all people, youth and older people, are registered to vote, and then to use the vote wisely. What I can say so clearly is that any party in the GNU should not be supported. Obviously, it cannot be supported because it is the GNU which has colossally failed South Africans. We now have a situation where young people and older people do not have to wonder what is different from the DA, the IFP, the ANC, the Freedom Front, and all those parties in the GNU, including the PA and others. If you are governing with the ANC, don't now opportunistically, just before elections, now start making calls and showing how concerned you are for the community and for the situation in the municipalities. This country is a spaza shop, the province is a spaza shop, the municipalities are spazas, and it is the responsibility of all those who are in the GNU which have reduced these municipalities to what they are. Municipalities can be described as run by a parallel structure, not the council. Every municipality has a parallel structure, and who is this parallel structure I'm referring to? I'm referring to the whole operation of billing and disconnections of electricity and water, and the amount that people have to pay for electricity and water. So that whole operation funds the cabals that are involved in the contractors that are involved in disconnecting, and the billing. The billing is structured. The billing is structured in a way to constantly move the bar. If you can afford 1,000, your bill goes up to 1,200. When you can pay 1,200, it goes higher. So that is one part which, after the elections, will have whoever has been voted by the people. So I just want to repeat what I'm saying about municipalities, and I'm focusing on municipalities for one reason. We have an opportunity to change governance of these municipalities. No municipality has ever been under the governance of the MK party. Because the MK party is for the first time contesting local government elections. So we do have an opportunity to have a party being elected into governing the municipalities, which has a very clear manifesto. The manifesto shows you quite clearly that it is white monopoly capitalism, including the elites and the imperialists, which have a stranglehold over our wealth. And that is the reason why nationalization is required. But nationalization will take place only after a general election in 2029. There are opportunities that await us in the election upcoming. And there is much to be done, and much can be transformed in the local government elections. For example, the local municipalities could make much more land available for farming, for small-scale farming, for small-scale manufacture, for larger-scale manufacture, and all those opportunities can be given to black-owned businesses, and which will be fueled by young people. So young people need to prepare themselves and skill themselves and be ready to take up these opportunities and to actually make these demands to the incoming governing parties of municipalities to do certain things to enable them to be able to get involved in farming, in food processing, in manufacture such as making toilet rolls, roller towels, PPP equipment, cleaning materials, soap, and then it can begin there but then go into greater things. And I'm not talking about big business and the wealthy coming to invest and create job opportunities. The system of creating jobs have been in place from 1994, and it's just kept people in a cycle of poverty. So we have an opportunity, we can go one step towards eradicating poverty and hunger and joblessness by people employing themselves in cooperatives and in small businesses and in small-scale farming. The rural areas have towns can also make land available for those purposes, and so too can the municipalities. Also, the whole entire system introduced by the ANC and the DA of giving out work by tenders need to come to an end. Look for that party that is not going to encourage big businesses. Look for a party that will not have influence over getting things, because if they pay bribes and if they agree to share the work between different type of businesses to get tenders, then those politicians are enriched. We're done with that. We've had enough of tenders. We've had enough of a few companies running security, of running infrastructure, of running various things in the city, which has basically brought the cities and towns to a state of collapse. Infrastructure is collapsed. The workings of the municipality is collapsed. People have got poorer and poorer and lost their homes, lost basic services because of this corruption at this level. So it is time for young people and older people to robustly involve themselves in politics and in these, ensuring that as many people as possible get registered to vote in this coming weekend, to make sure that we're not going to have another 50 years. We don't want the next generation to talk about June 16th, 50 years later from today, which is 100 years later, and still look at exactly the same situation. The struggle for education is still alive. The struggle for housing of students is still alive. The struggle for qualifications and obtaining jobs is still a struggle. So what has actually changed? We are still sitting in the same situation as June 16th. June 16th, 1976 saw the brutal use of violence force by the apartheid government, but it is just another form. The onslaught against the youth and against education is still there, but in a different way. So schools having pit latrines can be equated to the situation in the schools in 1976. So it is really my message to society, to South Africans, especially to the youth, is to involve yourself, use your power to change, to make a change, and to make sure that this will be a stepping stone towards 2029, when we can be completely freed from white monopoly capital and the foreign imperial stranglehold over our economy. So with that, all I can say is Amandla Awetu.
The children exposed the sham. The integrated society of which their parents dreamed had disappeared. Under separate development, whites educated their children properly and for nothing. Blacks paid for their children's apprenticeship in servitude.
Bantu education, separate education for blacks, was set in motion by Dr. Fafod when Minister of Native Affairs. In 1954, he made the following statement: "When I have control over native education, I will reform it so that the natives will be taught from childhood that equality with Europeans is not for them."
Between 1984 and 1992, an estimated 15,000 people were killed. The Truth and Reconciliation Committee reported 21,000 deaths and disappearances between 1960 and 1994, with many attributed to state forces. The Missing Persons Task Team has repatriated over 40 freedom fighters' remains from Zambia and Zimbabwe, with more ongoing. Have these people's deaths been in vain? The person who ran with the leader, which is Antoinette Sithole, she will now be almost 80 years old, and at 80 years old, she still carries forward the struggle of her brother, Hector Peterson. So it is a very sad day indeed that after 50 years, we have not achieved our freedom. The death of Hector Peterson, symbolizing the struggle by thousands of Soweto students against being forced to learn in Afrikaans, is no different than the death of the child at the pit latrine toilet in the Eastern Cape, and no different to the cries of the students and residents in the informal settlements against pit latrines and poor sanitation or no sanitation, as well as no water. The cries of the youth of being unemployed, of being excluded from a system of proper education, of not having any place to find employment in the area they are qualified in, is no different to the struggles of Hector Peterson. The same struggle is taking place today, and the same situation of being excluded. Then excluded from a system of choice as far as teaching and education is concerned. Today, it's against unemployment, poverty, hunger, housing, sanitation, water, joblessness, poverty. So it's the same. So we cannot continue to commemorate the bravery without changing the living conditions and the struggles of people in current day situations. So let us not just commemorate, commit to changing our municipalities, commit to changing governance, commit to changing corruption that breeds these illnesses, commit to changing the criminal justice system and the powers that be. Let us commit to the next 3 years that will bring us closer to a 2/3 change majority and a complete change in the Constitution and bringing economic freedom of our people. We know the cause of poverty. We know the cause of hunger. We know the cause of exclusion. It is nothing else beside white monopoly capital and the imperialism of the elites that govern our wealth in this country. Even the majority party in the KZN legislature has no control over the outcomes and has been relegated and forced out of governance, in a sense that there are 39 members heading the executive, the portfolio committees, the management committees. The majority party has been left out. In other words, Helen Zille and Ramaphosa have unelected the party which was elected by you, the people of KZN. It is exactly the same struggle of the students in the 1976 Soweto uprising. We had one victim who paid the price, severely injured and scarred for life, and that is Honorable Zama Cele. In another podcast, we will tell you, and we will have her explain the injuries she suffered in the day that our vote of no confidence was suppressed. In closing, let us remember the famous photo of Hector Peterson being carried by Makubo. Hector Peterson's sister, Antoinette Sithole, ran on the side of the three. And then there was Mashinini, who led the march and the protest. Let us remember all three. Hector Peterson died on that day, June 16, 1976.